spawning in the bottom left position of Pillars of Gold. Give it up for SOS. And his opponent up here in the top, Micro Jackson himself. It is BYUN. So if you don't know much about SOS, he's the kind of guy where he's very quiet throughout the year for these smaller tournaments, for these smaller events just overall in general. He doesn't really show up. He doesn't really come out until that prize pool hits a certain number. I think with the new EPT, he's been kind of forced to play a little bit more often just so that he can make that cutoff for the IEM Katowice. So he did make it into the round of 36. And remember, this is the lower brackets, the final game between these two. So whichever one loses has to go home. Or in this case, since it was online this year, straight to bed, young man. Already, we do see this kicking on off with BYUN. He's got a scout going across the map while SOS is kind of just dancing around this base. We do see that Marine first opening, just trying to stay a little bit safer, which I think is a very good idea against SOS because when it comes to builds, he's all over the place. When we think of Protoss players who don't play standard, Haas is one big one that comes to mind, and the other one is SOS. So you can kind of see he's trying to delay that natural expansion for as long as possible, but BYUN is just going to be throwing that on the high ground. Does not want to delay that any longer than necessary. And you know what? This probe is still in an awkward location, heading up here to the top, which really opens up the possibility that he might be going for some semblance of a proxy. We'll just have to see if he does decide to throw down that pylon. The positioning there would tell me that it is going to be Stargate, unless he's going to go completely crazy and spawn some DTs up there, but it doesn't look like that's the case so far. Yeah, there you go. Just throwing down the Twilight Council at home. The probe just hiding out for the meantime. And there you have it. Now, what we do see is, because he did get that early Marine, he will have 3, which is enough to shoo away the Adept. As the Adept kind of just shades around, looking for an opening, not going to find one. Yeah, it's really just overstayed its welcome, as we see that BYUN's going to be potentially going for Widowmine drops. But oh my goodness, this is a very dangerous situation for him now. As we've got the Dark Shrine coming in. So now the big question is, will BYUN have enough units out? Will he have enough scans even just to stop this? Getting a Raven would be pretty good, but without scouting this, without knowing that it's coming, that's going to be a really tall ask, and oof, this is not good. He's sending the medevac out. That is pretty much his entire army in that one tiny itty-bitty space. Looks like the Hellion is just kind of driving around as well, looking for a good location to boost in. And you know what? He actually is going for the Raven. Oh, that is going to be a lifesaver for BYUN. He's just got to make sure that he keeps that in position. Shield battery going to save these probes for as long as possible. And even going to force the defensive warp into the DT. I don't know if you really want to do it right there, because now you have revealed that DTs are out on the map. Still going to be a little bit of a nuisance with this medevac, though. Getting 3 probes total. Now, he did get a wall, but one of the DTs will go down. And with the Raven there, he should be fine. He shouldn't lose too much more. The drops starting to get kind of cleaned up as that count of stalkers comes up, and Blink is now on the way, so it did some decent damage. 5 probes, or 5 SCVs rather, did go down during that engagement. But I mean, SOS does have the third base to the 2 of BYUN. And actually, yeah, BYUN doesn't have a third base right now, and it doesn't look like he's throwing one down anytime soon. So, oof, we're going to have to pay attention to that. See if he just decides to go for the Hail Mary across the map. I don't really know if his unit comp is going to be the best for that. He does have the standard 2 tanks and tons of marine production. But still, with the fact that there are DTs, you have to keep the Ravens safe, or you're going to have to force out scans. And on 2 bases, that's a very tall order for the Terran player. Still a little bit of a lull in the action. Kind of taking a look at the army supply. We do have 21 Marines and 2 tanks out so far, so he does have almost double. But as we all know, shield batteries and stalkers are a man's best friend in this situation. All right, so here we go. We got him gearing up. The observer is going to spot everything. That's actually a DT, not an observer. Gonna get a cheeky slice on that Widow Mine. Any sort of pickoffs that he can get before this comes across is going to be fantastic for him. And the good thing for it is that he's mostly using that as a chance to get up to that third base. If he can get enough damage done at that third, if he can even kill that off, it's just going to be a fantastic location for him. Looks like a Shadow Stride came on in, forcing his attention back at home. Scan going to go down. 11 workers. This just makes the situation all the more dire for BYUN, as he's going to have to do some more damage right here, right now. I say SOS is positioning himself up on that high ground. Going to be looking for the pickoffs on those siege tanks. Good pullback there, getting a couple of Marines for his trouble. Scan's going to go down as well, revealing the Zealots, which don't have charge just yet. So right now, you just have to buy time as SOS to get a couple of additional warp-ins. And it looks like BYUN is going to be giving him that time, heading on home. Trying to get rid of that DT as well. He doesn't have a scan. There you go. So now the big question for SOS is, what's he going to transition to off the back of this? We already see his upgrades going to be coming in, a couple of additional gateways, but I don't see anything else. No robo facility, no robo bay, no Templar archives, just straight up Zealot Stalker for the meantime. And while that does have certain angles where it can work, at this point, BYUN still has that kind of unit count that counters it quite hard. Even adding on the Widow Mines just to take care of the Zealots in the front is going to do wonders for him. So just trying to get an angle on the situation. We do see that big Zealot run by. Going to be going for the full surround. BYUN a little bit out of position right now. So if he gets caught, the reinforcements are going to be in a little bit of trouble. But it does look like he's positioning himself as well as he possibly can. Keeping the units in the wall just to make sure that the surface area is not available to those Zealots. Go, another big warp in coming in. 1 DT and a couple of stabby boys. That will get cleaned out pretty quick. quickly, but that threat is always going to be right there because we don't see any air units out of BYUN. Scan going to go down. Finally cleaning that up. And now BYUN, he's down 30 supply, but still going to be looking for an angle to move into, as I'm just worried because he's given SOS so much time that I don't think he can really break this location anymore. And there we go. He is going to be able to siege up SOS a little bit out of position. He does have 4 Colossus, the last 2 about to pop, but he will get a quick cancel on this. A little Dorito cannon as well going to be going down. That's just going to allow BYUN to reposition a little bit more on the high ground. But we do see that run by starting to do some work. Those SCVs forced to be pulled. And even the reinforcements just getting pulled around trying to deal with this. Looks like BYUN, however, has found a good spot to try and engage into. One more Dorito cannon going to go in, but the Stalker's going to blink right on top of the siege tanks. Those will all go down. And now BYUN has to sacrifice this location or risk losing everything. A very costly retreat right there, as he's only just now cleaning up that run by. What I love about SOS right now is that even though he's not getting too much, he's still kind of forcing BYUN to stay at home with a good majority of his units just by these consistent little bits of harassment, which aren't costing SOS really anything. All things considered, like, he's using 1 DT and he's pulling back like 10 Marines and 3 Marauders at a time. That just stops that forward momentum that BYUN loves about the early to mid game and stops him from putting on any pressure of his own. Now BYUN's going to try once again, but his army is just pure Marine Marauder, and there's not even that many Marauders with this. So he's going to have to be very careful about where he engages into it. Force field going to catch a good chunk of these units. A couple will wiggle on by. Another big warp in. Will he get the Ghost Academy? The answer is no, as he goes for the SCVs instead. But this is kind of the problem. BYUN's a little bit inactive out here on the map with this because he's positioning, but every single time he moves out, he's not really finding any sort of damage, which has just allowed SOS all this time, all this energy to build up to the 4th base. Now he's going to have now he's going to be equal on upgrades here in just a little bit. Upgrades are so important in this matchup. Like, it really can't be overstated. EMP going to be blanketing this Protoss army. SOS just going to disengage, head straight back to his shield battery. Another small warp in the natural. That DT getting 4 additional SCVs. And the Warp Prism's just in a good position to come back in whenever he so chooses. So now the big question for BYUN is, when can he expand? He's got his CC coming in, but at this point, SOS is pushing so far forward that getting it situated, especially down here at the 3 o'clock position, is going to be a very tall ask for him, as that is so close to the 4th of SOS. Nothing really else you can say about these run-bys. They're doing great. Getting that Viking, though, will finally be enough to shut that down for good. But honestly, I think SOS is pretty happy with his position here. Just taking a look. 40 SCV kills in total. Now, his biggest issue is that he does need to kill the army. A very aggressive blink forward. Going to get one of those medevacs. And it looks like SOS is going to be preparing for the backstab. BYUN does have a lot of units here. So he will be rebuffed. Gotta be careful not to lose the Colossus too much as we have this fight going on over here. SOS is still chasing this down. But now that BYUN has cleaned up this location, he can come over here and consolidate his forces a little bit more to defend this one big jump. So SOS only backing off for a second. Now that he has the disruptors, that's just another positional tool that he can utilize. With this one, first shot goes off without a hitch. But BYUN taking some pretty bad fire from those Colossi. Gonna lose quite a bit of his bio before the engagement really kicks off. And while SOS does retreat, like how far is BYUN gonna be able to actually push into here? SOS is being very aggressive with these jump-ins, the Widow Mines, as well getting some pretty decent connections. Looks like a couple of DTs just went in once again. Those got picked off. Now, BYUN, for the first time in a while, it has had that supply lead. Looks like he did decide to go for the safer third base, or fourth base rather, as well. So that's going to help out. EMP is not really getting anything but the Zealots. Disruptors are going to force this back to the low ground, but the Vikings will give that high ground vision. SOS a little bit too far forward. Will lose both of those Disruptors. And with that, BYUN's just going to open up another little avenue for his attack. That is a lot of DTs. Question is this going to be enough? The SCVs didn't repair until the last second, and that does mean that that base is gone. And that's a lot of the mining operation here for BYUN. Just going to be out of commission. As you can kind of see, he's running out of minerals in his main base, in his natural, and his third base is starting to run dry as well. Now, the big problem is SOS does need to kill this army. He can do all this economic damage, but if he doesn't finish off the army, that's going to be it for him. And we see BYUN going to be moving in once again with pretty much everything he has. A small contingent going to stay at home to defend that small run by we saw. But a little bit of a flank by the Disruptors. Unfortunately, they get counter-flanked. All three of them will go down. One of them actually gets saved. Nice. But still, like, you can't keep trading out units like that. Those Disruptors are the most important thing to your army at the moment. Since BYUN doesn't have any Liberators, he doesn't have any Siege Tanks, and he doesn't really have anything other than Splits and Micro to stop them. But here we go. He's going to find this fourth. A little bit undefended. SOS a little bit out of position. Stalkers are going to blink forward, trying to get right on top of the Vikings, but they still will about two-shot those Colossus. Only one left, and it will fall. Only two left, and one will fall. And even though he gets the base, he can't really engage into this Sim City all that easily. And the fact that this is a orbital rather than a planetary is going to be very difficult to defend as well. SOS gets caught out up here by BYUN, who did send a small contingent up to the top. And this is kind of where BYUN loves to sit in these games where he can kind of just hit from multiple locations, keep you on your toes, keep you away from attacking. SOS not letting him play that game for the most part with these run-bys. But, you know, BYUN is still trying to find a way. His options, though, are starting to get a little bit limited here as his worker supply is going down. Disruptor's not going to get their shots off, however. The Immortals stuck in the backfield. They cannot blink away. One last Disruptor hit, though. Not going to finish this army. And BYUN, with an over 60 army supply lead, is starting to push for victory. Even if he's going to get pushed back here just a little bit, the supply doesn't lie. As SOS cannot defend this location. The second attack going to be coming in. And SOS knows it. We're just waiting for the tap out here. Although he is fighting pretty hard. Got to give him props to that. Trying to see what he can do with the Disruptors. One shot going to completely whiff. But again, this is pretty much his only mining location. You can even see, yeah, 15 on there. 0 on there. The run by is going to start to get cleaned up by the ghosts and such. That's really all SOS had left. Even though BYUN is down to 27 workers, you're going to need some miracle disruptor shots in order to get back into it. Reinforcements should start streaming across the map. It looks like he's starting to run a little bit low on some of these medevacs in terms of that energy. So he is going to have to take a much more decisive fight pretty soon if he doesn't want SOS to recover. And yeah, here we go. He's going to drop the EMPs, step back, try and bait the disruptor shots just a little bit before backing on out. That was a very aggressive blink. He's losing the Stalkers for it. Okay, so maybe if BYUN was able to keep his army completely together, that would be enough to kind of close this one out. But as it stands, he's just now seeing these gateways. He's got the Dark Shrine in his sights. And with that finally gone, that is going to be the end of these run-bys, as you're going to have to go around the map and rotate very hard in order to get that working again. So now he can put all his attention down here in this engagement. A couple of ghosts going down. That's a nice start for SOS. But he's not even fighting with his entire army. BYUN finding a little bit of a weak spot. Gets on top in the natural, or the third base. Now the Disruptors will force him back slightly. Small little contingent. Good focus fire. Just going to get the ones that are firing off. Very wisely here. But he's about to get pincered so hard. As the main army starts to go down on the left, the Disruptors are left to their own devices over here. But yeah, I'm not going to give him the time of day. Even though he's forced back, this base is going to go down. Very aggressive blink forward. But now BYUN can just go straight for the natural. Get rid of all the tech. SOS has left himself way too open right now, and he knows it. GG is called. So BYUN taking game number 1. Not the cleanest, but still very strong, very methodical picking apart there at the end. Just making sure that SOS could not respond in any stretch of the imagination. And so with that, we're going to be heading on to Lightshade for map number 2. SOS already showing why he is still a world champion in his own right. But he's going to have to take it up with this world champion as well, spawning in the top position, winning in 2016. Give it up for BYUN. And his opponent down here in the bottom. Give it up for our world champion, SOS. I told you guys I was not kidding when I said that these replays are going to be absolutely epic. As that first game, if that is any indicator as to how the rest of them are going to go, that's pretty much like how the rest of this night's going to be. All awesome, all amazing. And already we do see BYUN going to be going for a little bit of a more tech-oriented opening. This does allow him to be aggressive if he so chooses, but he's going to get that extra gas income, which will allow him to go up to that factory much, much quicker. Now, SOS, he gets a full read on this, and his response, he's going to go for Cybernetics Core first before his Nexus, which is a little bit safer. It means you can get your tech out and kind of just stop any sort of early game shenanigan, as we've kind of seen out of BYUN a little bit. I think in the past couple of months I've seen him do maybe 2 big cheeses. He's quite fond of the 2 Marauder push with the concussive shell upgrade. Basically what you do with that one is you just send it across the map very early, and it forces your opponent into building that shield battery before he's probably ready to. And you can usually get maybe 1 or 2 stalkers before having to pull away. But there we go. It is going to be a Hellion timing here for BYUN. A little bit late on getting the second one, but it should still hit at a relatively decent time. He's not going to make this any sort of all-in. As you can see, he's pulled semi off of gas, 2 and 2, just so that he can have enough to get that command center down. Now, the big problem is that SOS is going for Stargate. Might be going for that Oracle straight into Phoenix. I think that would be a pretty good hard counter to what BYUN is going for. The Adept did get a little bit of vision. He saw that the factory was producing. So that tells him that there's a good chance that Hellions are coming across. He already has his wall set up. Shield battery just going to give him a little bit of extra room to breathe. And now the Phoenix going to catch this, but he doesn't have his comrades here, so he can't lift up. I don't know about shading on top of that as SOS. I think he really does want to fight in range of those shield batteries, but the Phoenix is going to get some nice pickoffs. They're just going to be hunting down what's left. And I think this has been kind of hard countered for BYUN. Yeah, I've been playing it a little bit more safe, just making sure that there's not going to be any sort of drop. Overall, good moves from SOS, and now he can kind of go up to that third base pretty soon. He can kind of just play his game. And you can kind of see he's not going to rely too much on the Phoenix. He's just going to get about 5 or 6 that will allow him that positional play, that vision out on the map. As he picks off the Hellions, we do see that probe kind of just hanging out, getting ready to drop the third when he's ready. SOS sensing a little bit of an opportunity, trying to hit before BYUN is kind of set up for him, but we do have that siege tank kind of just hiding out behind the natural This was a couple of cheeky Widow Mines. So let's see if these Adept Shades do finish. Looks like the answer is no right now, but the Widow Mines gonna get 2 of those Phoenix. Oh my goodness, that was about as bad as it could get for SOS. So now he's just gonna lose a lot of that pressure. He's still gonna try and get in here with the Adepts, it looks like, just canceling the Shade and forcing BYUN to stay home. But losing that many Phoenix is such a headache because now you're gonna have to remake them, which slows down your build order. It looks like he's gonna be going into Colossus behind it. And as you know, that's just a really big headache for your 4 SOS. So the Phoenix going to be looking for the Widow Mines. He goes straight back to the spot, but they are not there anymore. Just going to be content to pick off the reinforcements as the army is moving out. SOS did drop a ton of gates right now, and he will be recalling those Phoenix. So the question is, how much can BYUN get with this push? Looks like SOS is going to try and engage this. Slowly pulling back. Setting up a little bit of a surround as the Widow Mines do have time to drop on in the siege tanks. Getting a couple of shots off on the Adept, but SOS is cut off from his natural. I think, yeah, he does have an Observer, so it's not going to be the biggest of deals. But gonna get the Colossus sniped, and now he can get out of there with a good majority of these units. The Phoenix need to chase this down. Like these guys are gonna give their last breath, but the shield battery just a little bit too much for the pew pew cannons. So now BYUN has done 2 things. He's stopped Colossus production, which is gonna be the most important thing for him, as SOS is only just now getting that Twilight Council. So there's not gonna be any Archons. There's not gonna be any splash with this army at all. Looks like the Phoenix are going to miss this as well. Threading the needle between the two, so they will be making their way in. Now, there's not that many Marines, so he's going to have to focus fire down those Phoenix one by one. Going to get a couple of good kills on the gateways, just going to slow down that production as well. Widow Mine just being very sneaky. The one Colossus coming home by itself. Oh, no! That's actually out of range of that shield battery as well, so that will go down. That's the last of the Colossus. And SOS, his base, is in complete tatters right now as we see that secondary attack coming into the 3rd. Yeah, there's just not enough here for SOS. As he just focus fires down right through that shield battery, and GG is called. So BYUN going up to a very fast 2-0 against SOS. He's gonna have to, SOS is gonna have to pull it back soon if he wants to stay in this game, in this series, and in this tournament. But speaking of tournament, we've got one going on in game number 3 on Oxide, spawning down here in the bottom position. Give it up for Micro Jackson, BYUN. And his opponent up here in the top, a world champion. He is the SOS. And I feel like the problem with those last couple of games is just these very small stumbles that kind of allowed BYUN that opening that he was looking for. In the first game, he had such good harassment out on the map. He was consistently getting SCV kills, and BYUN wasn't really remaking them. He was also a little bit behind in terms of that base count, as his third base was really late. His fourth base continuously got denied. And, you know, he was kind of working on fumes for a lot of that game, but it was just the engagements where BYUN was pulling ahead. So I think if SOS can kind of clean that up a little bit, make sure that he doesn't, you know, kind of stumble on that front, maybe get a little bit of a quicker transition. I think that is going to be his big goal to come back into this one. So far, it looks like BYUN just been playing it a lot safer than you would usually see him do it, as he is going to be getting that CC on the high ground once again. You know, that does slow you down just a little bit, because that does mean that you're going to have to float that over. That's still time that you have to build an orbital command on there. So the fact that he's doing that against SOS is giving a lot of respect to the fact that SOS can be very aggressive in the early game. Honestly, they're pretty similar in that regard. Just the fact that sometimes they do like to live in that early to mid game, don't really transition to the late game that well. And yeah, it kind of just comes down to, in those situations, who has the better micro and who has the better ability to replenish their army quicker. I don't think these guys would have it any other way, as the Adept going to be trying to sneak its way into the main. BYUN a little bit too quick on the depot for that, however. Sees the Hellions, sees the Marines, and knows that this Adept does need to start coming on home if he wants to survive another day. Blink is here. Take a look at how many gateways are available to him. So far, the answer is 3. Fourth just getting dropped. So this does mean that SOS is going to be going for the jugular fast and hard. If we saw only 3 gates, you know, that could be a little bit more defensive. It allows you to transition. But 4 gates? May Flash have mercy on your soul, as he's just going to be pumping out the Stalkers and looking for as much damage as possible. Now on the blue side of the map, we don't see a siege tank or any semblance of splash, but he will have that Raven to kind of deny the observers that vision that he is looking for. So we'll have to see what kind of angle we can get here. The War Prism is the indicator that the attack is about to begin, as the Stalkers begin their trek across the map. Looks like BYUN tried to send a little bit of a medevac out. Didn't really get anything for it. Wouldn't mind. Won't get anything either, as the save is there. And that's actually the first unit lost in this game. So here we go. Will he be able to do it? He's got 1 siege tank in the back. The SCVs pulled a little bit late to save the bunker. And the siege tank will be enough to hold this location, but that still leaves this entire base open on this side. And getting 2 supply depots in the front means he's going to be very heavily supply blocked for the time being. Oof. Already a good start for SOS. He's just got to make sure not to extend too far. Because remember, there's 2 big timings, or 2 big timers that are put on this build. When there's about 2 to 3 siege tanks, and when stim is complete. And BYUN just playing it very well, very defensively. We'll lose the bunker a couple of additional times as SOS going to be coming in here to the back. But he will have enough to kind of pull back in both sides. Looks like the siege tank did go down. And on the other side of things, the Raven just going to be used for a little bit of extra damage. Oh, that War Prism is getting dangerously low. So, total for this, let's see, he got about 4 SCVs. So not the greatest of pickoffs here, and that does mean he's going to have to keep these Stalkers out offensively, just to make sure that BYUN doesn't move across with this army. He's going to want to stay around for the pickoffs. BYUN kind of recognizes that, but he says to heck with it. I have stim. Combat shields will complete by the time I make it across. He's going to get one quick Stalker pickoff. A second will fall. Now SOS in a full retreat. Keep in mind, back at home, we do have one Colossus, the second very far behind. I don't think it'll be out in time for this defense. But so far, it does look like BYUN is just going to play it safe. Go for a very careful siege up location before moving forward. Now, this spot is brilliant for siege tanks. You can kind of see BYUN very happy to attack in this location. Shield battery overcharge does go down on one of those. The Colossus are safer right now. One of them not going to be able to engage in the fight till just about now. But even though SOS is taking a little bit of damage at this location, even though he loses the shield battery, I don't think that this is going to be enough for BYUN to finish the push in. Here we go. SOS just with a very aggressive blink forward, gets on top of the siege tanks and takes them out. So overall, a pretty solid hold by SOS. Even going to get that parting medevac as it flies away. Very nice indeed. So now SOS does have the army supply just slightly. And it looks like he's kind of gearing up for BYUN's move out here, as BYUN trying to take that third base. But let's see if he can actually get it. Stalker's very aggressively blinking forward. Once again, the Colossus in the front. Good Prism pickup there. Going to keep that alive. But the goal here for SOS is just to make sure that BYUN can't take that third base. Big warping of Zealots is going to help push the issue as well. We do have 2 siege tanks ready to rain hellfire. But the thing is, SOS, he doesn't need that push. He doesn't need any additional aggression for right now. He's more than content to just hang out here. Maybe get a couple of more warp-ins and kind of just force BYUN to turtle up on 2 bases. Oh, that's a good scout as well. He sees the medevac coming out. BYUN knows that he's not going to get anything with that either, so exceptional contain here from SOS so far. He's just got to be careful as that Viking count is starting to climb. Gotta take a look at upgrades here. It looks like BYUN's starting to fall a little bit behind. Both of them are on 1-1, but +2 is on the way for SOS already, and he's going to be getting those armor upgrades very soon as well. So even if his army's a little bit smaller, he's going to have such a big hit. This army is just really going to hit him very, very hard as those upgrades start to come in. And Templar Archives, so Storm is a very big possibility here as well. Bit of an accidental Reaper right there. Alright, so BYUN's still trying to find an angle in order to break this one in. The Static Shock upgrade not done just yet, and it looks like by the time he hits, even though he will have his +1 armor, you know, he's still going to have to contend with +2 everything else. A couple of Zealots going to get a couple of kills, and that does kind of divert BYUN's attention. This Protoss army just gets scarier and scarier by the second. And here we go, BYUN just going to get that scan in, looking for some damage. Stalkers, once again, just being very aggressive. I don't like that. He's trying to get these Viking pickoffs, but every time he does it, he trades out Stalkers for no real gain. Looks like BYUN does still have a pretty defensible position, though, at the top of the ramp. SOS is just going to dive on top of this. The Zealots don't have their shields, but that's enough to get on top of the siege tanks. Those will all go down, and BYUN's supply starting to plummet while SOS gets the full surround, forcing the liftoff. Now the Stalkers have room to play. BYUN below 100 supply, looking for the 4th base wherever he can find it. He does have a 4th of his own, but SOS is not going to give him the time to get back into this one. He is going for that final kill. And there you have it, SOS putting himself on the board. GG. Now he's still got to go for the full reverse sweep. So that is a pretty tall order against BYUN. But you know what? If anyone can do it, it's SOS. And I know people say that about a lot of players, but SOS is definitely cut from a different cloth when it comes to big prize pools. I feel like that's kind of his thing. The second the prize pool gets over a certain amount, that's when he is at his best. You know what? Speaking of best, IEM has brought together some of the best players in the world, and let's introduce one of them up here in the top position. Give it up for BYUN. And his opponent, hanging out in the bottom locale, he is SOS. Alright, so Jagannatha as a map is kind of the oddest map, I'd have to say, in the pool, for the sole reason that even though it is quite large, the rush distance is relatively short, which does open up the possibility for SOS to go for that, you know, that kind of not cheesy but aggressive strategy with Blink, with maybe Adepts, Void Rays, you know, just pretty much anything that a Protoss player can throw at you. We did have a little bit of engagement right there. But yeah, now BYUN is going to get a Reaper in this one, so I guess he's wanting to feel a little bit safer so that he doesn't fall into the same trap as he did last game. So just getting that is just going to be able to confirm the tech choice of his opponent. But both sides do have their natural down at roughly the same time. They will finish up, and the Reaper is going to be making its way across. Ooh, okay. Looks like BYUN going to be going for an old favorite. He's going to get the Marauder and Concussive Shells. And this is kind of what I said in the last, I think, like 1 or 2 games ago. That he does like to do these small pushes. Just get 2 Marauders and go for a couple of pickoffs. Either get the Stalkers, the Adepts. Just pretty much get anything that you want. As we do see a couple of additional gateways being added on for SOS. Trying to finish up the wall. So I'm very interested as to what he's going to be going for, as we do have warp gates, but we don't have any other tech structures out on the map just yet. Nice positioning on that pylon. That won't be scouted for a while. This Reaper not really doing its job either. He has not seen the main base at all. I think he just barely, with the shades, missed the fact that there were these 2 Marauders coming across the map as well. And there's not really that much at home. There's no shield battery overcharge. And there's just one Adept, so he's going to have to force the defensive warp in. Yeah, this is kind of the power of this. You can get some pickoffs, but good micro from SOS just going to keep almost everything alive. The Adepts making their way into the main base as well, so that is not good. Gets a couple of Marines before going down. So a little bit of a blow for blow there. But you know what? Blink is on the way. I don't know if that's the best option, considering that Marauder production can start back up at any single time. And we will have enough siege tanks. So let's see what he can really get done with this small compadre of Stalkers. Already BYUN just going to make a small mistake right there. Stops his people from mining for just a second. But in these kind of situations, every single mineral counts. Stim just seconds away from completing, though. And I think that's going to be kind of his catalyst to get this attack started. Siege tank coming on down as well. And that will be enough to force SOS back. But the threat certainly isn't gone just yet. Alright, so far we do have a little bit of a counter poke with this one medevac. It's just there to kind of scare BYUN, or scare SOS just a little bit. But you know what? SOS is still sticking with this very heavy gateway style. We don't really see too much coming out of the Robo facility just yet. No Immortals, no Warp Prism. Only just now starting that one, and he will be going for Blink behind it, but he's a little bit out of position. Good pull by SOS, but he's going to have to keep these sentries alive. Will be able to do so, as BYUN is forced back. Okay, so good defense so far from SOS on all fronts. He's not really taking any sort of damage, and BYUN once again doesn't have a third base. Ooh, my goodness. This is a scary situation, because even though BYUN does have the minerals to throw it down, he is floating a little bit, as you can kind of see. Not really spending his money too well, because he doesn't have a ton of production. Just gotta take a look at that. Yeah, he's still only on 3 racks. So that does mean that he's gonna have to throw down some additional structures there. Otherwise, he's going to risk being overwhelmed completely. Small little Zeldrumpin. They are just about to pop charge. It is your lucky day, Mr. Probius. Because it looks like BYUN's attention is focused elsewhere, trying to stop this drop from getting into his main base. The Widowmine's just kind of repositioning just slightly. Now, even though that didn't do a lot of direct damage, he did pull BYUN off of his base for quite a long time, and that does set up the ability for him to kind of come out here and be a little bit more aggressive out on the map with these units. Oh my god, there is such a lot of zealots out on the map. How many does he have? Sitting at 17, 23. That's almost as much as many Marines are out. That could have been very bad. Force fields missing on a lot of these units, so they will be able to escape. SOS does have the supply lead with this army as well, but this is such a scary position for BYUN that you can't really engage into it. Oof, even going to be going for the surround. Let's see if SOS can do it. Widowmines only connecting on a couple of those zealots. The Stalkers, though, going to blink very heavily forward to get the medevacs, but they don't have any support in the front anymore. BYUN is forced back, so a very good hold. But again, he's got to be a little bit careful with those blinks, because he almost lost a lot of those Stalkers to the Marauders. Both players only on 3 bases for the meantime. Just taking a look at that income. You can kind of see where the mules are dropping, as neither side is popping out any more SCVs or probes. So, okay. That's something. A lot of the time you will see players go up to 70 to 80, and then from there, as the SCVs start to kind of die off, the Terran player will just replace them with the fighting units to make their army a little bit better. It looks like he did restart SCV production. Okay, that's nice. Now the problem for SOS is that he's going to have to contend with these double prong attacks. The shield battery not going to get really too many of these units. There you go, going to catch a good chunk of them now. But this does allow BYUN to find that pylon which SOS was using for his harassments, and he's still pressuring out here on the 3rd. I do not know why that prism did not go off. Or that Widowmine, that is. If a prism goes off, then that's, you know, your game's a little bit bugged. There we go. Gets on top of a lot of those zealots before getting taken down, but this is going to kind of indicate to BYUN that he can maybe go to the main base, but pulls back very wise at the last second there. That was about to be a game-ending move. Okay, so kind of taking a look at the upgrades here. BYUN will have the advantage, +2. Obviously, a pretty big deal, as his opponent will only have that +1 armor. So that just means his These units are going to hit that much harder. But, you know, now at this point, SOS does have a very good army wherein he can just kind of defend multiple locations at once. So BYUN's game plan, as you can kind of see, trying to rotate around, seesaw attack each side is going to be a little bit harder to pull off. The thing I love about one of the things that BYUN does is that he always catches the observer. No matter how many are made in the game, you will usually end the game with absolutely zero. But hold that thought, as we do have the engagement starting to pop off over here. The Zealots being forced to retreat back to the shield battery. Might actually get the +2 upgrade as well, so oh my goodness. That is fantastic. A small engagement going to be happening on over here, but nothing really going on. Now SOS is looking to engage, so Widowmine will get one connection. And as soon as that army is gone, that is going to be the indicator for BYUN that he can move back in. Okay, getting a couple of ghosts, that's really nice, actually. But here we go, SOS camping the third base a little bit. The bio is a little bit too much for him, though. He will have to back off the Colossus, getting pretty well hit by the Vikings in the back. But gotta be careful not to fight into the acceleration zone. That would be pretty bad. The Colossus, however, a little bit exposed. Two of them. Oh no, BYUN! Oh my goodness. Not finishing up that last one, so that means there's 3 in the backfield. SCVs have been pulled to help defend. 9 of them will go down. Looks like SOS is just going to keep this position going. Another big Zealot warp in. Oh, but those Colossus are starting to run out of health. Rotating around, looking for a 4th base that's not there. Did he actually... Okay, so he knows about this location. I think if he would have maybe splintered off some units to go for that, he might be a little bit better off rather than trying to get to the high ground on that side. But hold that thought, as he's going to be coming in once again. EMP is going to be blanketing these armies. These Archons are in one-shot distance. SOS being forced to retreat back through the acceleration zone once again. He doesn't feel confident enough to finish that fight, and you can kind of see he didn't want that many Zealots. He wanted that many Zealots and a couple of Sentry Archons. Does he have Storm? He does not. Force fields are pretty good, going to be preventing this army from coming down. Will the SCVs be enough to repair? It looks like the answer is yes for right now. SOS not finding the damage that he needs in any aspect. And now while he is up a base, which is fantastic for him, he is going to be struggling to take out the army of BYUN. Another big EMP. BYUN just going to be stimming on top of this. Even feeling confident to just get a couple of pickoffs back up and maybe go for it again and again. But now there's going to be disruptors in play. So with disruptors, that does mean you have to be a little bit more careful, a little bit more well-positioned, and a little bit more prepared to deal with 12 Zealots coming into your main base. That's completely unrelated, but you know what? 12 Zealots. You know that's going to be a good time for SOS if he can get in there. First disruptor shot, not going to go off. Second one gets a whiff. Looks like this base will go down as the Zealots going to be making their way in. A couple of reinforcements will will pop out to defend that, but he's going to lose quite a few of those SCVs. And that's still going to be pretty dangerous to deal with, just for the fact of how long it's going to keep your reinforcements off the main fight. So now SOS is looking pretty good. He is going to be re-establishing that 5th base, and he still has a good majority of the units in the backfield. So the Colossus, the Disruptors, hasn't really lost too many of them, but right now, hold that thought, as he does lose 3 of those Disruptors to the stim forward. Really nice pick off there by BYUN, and he will be able to deflect this quite easily. And now the Colossus, a little bit exposed out here in the front. 2 of them will go down very quickly. 3rd one will fall to the Vikings, just yeeting forward. And Albia finds a good location up here on the high ground. Cancels level 2 ground weapons once again. I don't think that upgrade is ever going to finish. His units a little bit weakened there, however, since he's losing all that medevac energy. Oh my gosh, that is so many reinforcements. Once he cleans up that drop, I don't know how SOS is going to be able to finish it. Disruptor does get a couple, but the pickup is beautiful. And now SOS, he's below 100 supply, while he is still mining quite heavily, and he still will have a couple of Archons. I don't think that's going to be enough against the forward momentum of BYUN. And yeah, there you go, losing one of the last Disruptors. That was kind of his Hail Mary to get that, but that will go down. Okay, it looks like he saves it for a little bit longer, but it doesn't even matter. BYUN stimming to winning the shield battery, going to save what he can, but even that's not enough to deal with this as that gets stimmed down. Disruptors are falling, and that was the last warp in as BYUN moves his way into the round of 24 with a fabulous end to the series. So that's going to be it for this series. Make sure you guys hit like, favorite, and subscribe, and we will see you at the next big Alpha X event.